itemized to reflect the, you know, this is the labor, this is excavation. If it's not itemized as such from the user department or supply chain, I think, as I'm saying, there could have been a misunderstanding as to who was supposed to do the itemized. I think maybe as the time when the requisition was loaded could have been loaded and by someone who, you know, did not communicate with the whole entire management of community services. That is my thinking. But when the order was finally signed off by a supply chain, the itemizing was not there. So if the itemizing is not there, on our side, if it just says material or it just says colony project, you will not know colony project, what is for the material, what is for the labor, what is for transport, and if that is not itemized, such errors will always occur. But we managed to pick that one up. It's not that maybe we managed to pick that one up when we raised it with the user department. They said, no, but the contractor is on site and he's busy with the construction. So I think the comfort of us was, okay, he is busy, he's doing. But after we learned that the community is not welcoming the whole project, it was when we said, but we've already paid. Now we declared that as a regular expenditure in our book. We did declare it. It was to audit committee, it was to AG as such as declared. So that's all what you can do in the event where you incur an overpayment of such. You declare it according to the regulations. And as we're speaking, the municipality has requested the service provider to report on site to start commencing the work.
Thank you very much. Just a quick one. When was that paid over to the contractor? And when did you pick up that there's a problem? Which year was it?
The whole thing, it occurred, I think 2019, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere there.
2019.
2019.
The payover was 2019
yes.
Also. Okay, I'm going to hand over, Mr. Shabane. There are other questions? Okay. Before you come in, Mr. Shabane, let me hand over to the Burgemeester.
Thank you. I questioned this to the HOD. One, he informed me that the material was not at port. It was stored somewhere in KwaNokuthula in our waste transfer station. And the company said, want me to remove this huge material again to the airport. It will come at an added cost to you as a municipality. I brought my machines were on site, they were working. I've done my work and you'll have to pay me for the work that I've done. It is not my fault that your community does not want me to continue with the work, but the work that I've done, I've employed people and they've been working, you have seen them, you will have to pay me for that as a municipality. It was a lot of contest and fighting with the contractor as well. There's been a correspondence on that regard with the contractor where they were demanding that they were on site. It is not their fault that the community does not want. It's a pity that Councillor Swart is our councillor. It's something that he could have just raised in the council meeting, but I'm grateful that he raised it in this platform so that we can also be able to get advice from national and
okay, I'm going to hold, I'll come back to you. I'm recognizing your hands, but I want the national also to cover us with some of the questions that they did receive, and we come. I think it's one of the conversation we'll have for okay. We'll just continue with the questions when you come back from the municipality. Mr. Shabane, are you still with us? Can you respond to the questions that are directed to the National Department of Human Settlements?
Madam Chair, I am still here. I almost said Tovela. Question that relates to us. I think it's the one question that I thought was answered earlier about the land that was donated. And I recognize, Chairperson, that from your question, the Chairperson is concerned about the length of time it took for the land to actually finally be availed to the municipality, the paperwork and all of that. Madam Chair, under the circumstances that are emergency here. In my view, Chairperson, I think the department and the municipality, and I'm talking the Department of Agriculture, Rural Development and Land Reform, they potentially could have agreed to exchange a power of attorney that would allow the municipality to proceed. But I am not privy to the details there, Chairperson, because clearly it's another department in that respect. However, Chair, from our side, that's a matter that we will take up going forward, but it's also a matter, Chairperson, that we will seek to strengthen the emergency response, because you can, if people's houses burn down today and it takes 2 years, a year to avail the land, what happens in the meantime? I think that's the concern that we should all share. So, Chairperson, in as much as the land issue has been resolved according to the municipality's report, I think we will take up the matter of the time it takes for that land to be released. Not only in this case, Chairperson, perhaps generally, especially where national department, whether rural development or public works or other is involved. That is all, Chairperson. The other questions were directed to the municipality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaban, even though I think at the end there we couldn't hear a thing that you were saying. Can you repeat what were you saying? The last two sentences.
Okay, can you hear me now, Chair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Chairperson, I was submitting to the committee that the matter that we will take up as a national department in support of provinces and municipalities that are responding to emergency cases, it's the one where the speed at which land is availed, if it is in the national hands, we will assist in ensuring that we find a better way, speedier way for the municipality or province to access that land. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lashaban, just a last one from me. And I know on your presentation, you said you were doing the monitoring and verification. And the municipality saying so that contributed in all this was to get, like you suggest, that if they could have used the power of attorney for them to be able to access that piece of land. Why that was not the solution to the municipality to tell them that, okay, let's get you the power of attorney for you to access that piece of land so that you can continue with the project?
Chairperson, the matter of that alternative land, remember there were several options that were available to the municipality in the context that apprehensive to some of the proposals that the council was making. That said, Chairperson, the transaction between the municipality and the National Rural Development Department was outside of our domain. In fact, we only became aware thereof much later. Even then, there was already a stalling because of the community dynamics. So it's a matter that, like I say, retrospect, Chairperson, the question of the power of attorney is the wisdom in hindsight.
Okay, your connection is very bad. I cannot hear anything, but I see the hand of Jessica, Councillor.
Good morning.
Can you? Okay, morning, over to you.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I would like to comment on the fact that I think that, because I'm the ward councillor actually of Ward 1, it was one of the areas that were affected and one of the areas that some of the beneficiaries were identified. Now the issue of 562 needs to be separated from the issue of emergency housing. 562 has indeed been earmarked as the piece of land where future development will take place. However, at that stage, there was even no planning that was happening in 562. And also, Madam Chair, if you look at the beneficiaries, they are currently they are residing within Zawa Zawa, which is an informal settlement within Curlet Village that has got about close to 500 people staying there. So if you take a certain section of that community and you want to separate them now by going and relocating them on a vacant piece of land where there is no services available, there is no any water connection, sewage connection, or anything for this community, then obviously that's where the problem started. If the plans were to locate the beneficiaries within the community that they are already residing, I think that would have simplified matters. So that's actually what has delayed the whole thing. And also, like the mayor has alluded to, by the time the emergency units reach us, some of the beneficiaries already received emergency kits from the municipality, which means they were already helped. So there was a whole confusion between moving them onto 562 and actually where they are currently residing, obviously relocating them there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to you, sir.
Chair, I just wanted to clarify about the confusion caused by the definition of what is at the airport. At the airport, it's fully fledged houses, structure. You'll get, fortunately you come from Cape Town, you know how people build houses at Khayelitsha. You get 4 structures, size, a roof and a ceiling, which only needs to be assembled. That's a proper house, but it has been dismantled for storage purposes. So work has been done. So when we deliver them to the suitable land, we will assemble them because they are readily available. I just want to clarify, for somebody who think you're going to see pins, wood, and zinc. No, you're going to see sites of house structure. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much for that clarity. We noted that.
Madam Chair, I just wanted, because of, I think the meeting thinks that there was a 3.9, which was for the grant, and the whole money was paid, and not understanding what portion was for the relocation and labor. It was only an amount of 371,000 rands out of the whole big chunk of the material. So if you look into the materiality part of it, the material has been delivered. I just wanted to emphasize on the labor component in the whole funding or expenditure, that it was not that material. Hence, we registered it as irregular. We with understanding that it is something that the service provider will be working on. Thank you.
And if I can talk on behalf of the members, they can correct me if I'm wrong, is we have the families that had to benefit from the emergency grant, and they did not because of the community dynamics and. But there are some families that would have been acceptable to them. And you have the glitches that happened there from national, from the municipality, that it couldn't happen, that if Matlodi doesn't want it, but Brett wants it, it could have happened. And again, the procedure that you normally use was not the same that you don't have. Yes, the structure we know have to be assembled, but the question of why do you pay me before I can sweep your room and you are paying me for sweeping your room? It's another thing that we are trying to find out what happened that you missed that part, because it might be 300 and the houses that you bought is families that are going to have that structure. So it's just not the issue of we are saying the whole amount. We are saying the end user, did they receive what was accepted? It didn't happen, and where are we getting it short? Remember, when we are here, we are not here to say you are wrong and try to do the policing. We are saying where is our systems not working for the communities to receive what they expect from us as the government. And I'm saying us because it's all of us that have to make sure that at the end we give what we promise to give within our communities. Okay, thank you very much. Members, do you still have any other questions? A follow-up, Member Brett and Member Maran?
Thanks, Jim. The minor follow-up questions, if I may start with the Mr. Shabani in National Human Settlements. To go back to the emergency funding grant and the grant funding cuts, I mean, we do understand that there were cuts across government everywhere. But an emergency situation is again one of those situations I don't think we have a choice. It's like we don't have a choice but to fund the response to COVID-19. It cannot be that we're going to say to a community, we've run out of money, we can't help you. I mean, at the moment, there are fires raging in the Western Cape. It is the fire season. So I want to understand what you mean exactly when you say you can only achieve within the resource. Are we going to go to a community that is impacted by an emergency situation and say to them, you're on your own, there's no money available? Or are we going to move money? Because this is about making choices as far as I'm concerned. So I'd like to get some clarity that actually at the end of the day, no community that is devastated by some emergency situation will be unassisted. And then if I can just go to ask the Bitou Municipality whether they would, the mayor indicated that there is a policy to assist families that experience emergency displacement, and whether the finance department and the housing department or the municipality doesn't put in place a proper tender, rather than every time there's an occasion, then you are scrambling to follow a deviation. I mean, surely it would make sense and it would be good governance to put in place a term tender that allows for you to draw against it if you ever need that situation again. I'm sure the pricing would be better and you wouldn't have to follow a deviation process. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Bergmeester, I'm going to take the question and then after you can be able to respond. I'm going to recognize Member Maran, and after Member Andrikas van der Westhuizen, it will be after Member Maran.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to check on the piece of land, because my understanding was the piece of land in the handover of it was for this particular community also to be accommodated on, because the size of the land where they have stayed was too small. That's my understanding. Now, when I've listened to the mayor, and I would like to understand the size of this particular land that you've received from the Department of Rural Development, is now saying that when you apply for EIA and the rezoning of that piece of land to the Department of Environmental Affairs, Development and Planning, they were saying only 1 hectare. Only 1 hectare. I would like to understand the whole site, because if you look, for instance, and it's an issue that we have spoken about recently, MEC Berdial saying that we have to reserve prime agricultural land. But if you look, and especially within the Cape Winelands area, you will see these housing developments and the estates and the size, and especially agricultural land, and the size of it that's been approved is way beyond 1 hectare, way beyond 1 hectare. So we would like to understand, and we will also raise this within our committee meeting. Why are you present to only 1 hectare if you want to get this thing pushed through. So I would like to understand the size of this particular land.
Thank you very much. Member van der Westhuizen.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I've got two questions. From my experience, in many cases where informal areas are devastated by fire, that the best the people can hope for is what is generally known as a fire kit, which often consists just of a few pieces of corrugated iron, poles, etc. How do you qualify for a 36 square meter structure, which seems to be a fully fledged house, albeit of different construction material? What are the criteria that are used to allocate various forms of support to local governments? And the second one is just from both the national department and the municipality, if they could just tell us what lessons have they learned, or did they learn any lessons, or would they do anything differently in future should similar circumstances occur? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's the last from the members. I think from me, the last one, it will be, to one extent, was the community involved from the onset, as they were the ones that were the victims of this, that after you procured, you didn't have their buy-in. So when were they involved in the process? When did you do consultation with them for this project? Burgemeester? For the victims of the fire, for this project specifically, when were they involved? Before you requested support or after? Over to you, Burgemeester.
Thank you very much. I think I must start with this last question. We were in a community hall when the ministers presented us, called the entire community, and the beneficiaries were there, because we had to talk about those that were affected and the entire community on the database for housing. So that's where the promise was made. The only thing that I think we did not anticipate was the resistance from the community, that I still, if I'm staying in a 2-meter shed, I still want to be in that 2-meter shed. Our policy is saying 3 meters. We provide the material for 3 meters. And then at times when that 3 meter becomes bigger, and if somebody was in a 2-meter shed, and then the next door is going to say, no, 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 this was my piece of land. It used to be a space, you can't occupy it. So it's quite, I wanted them to zoom in with a map. It's a pity they did not do that. As we said, that area can accommodate 74 RTP houses. But currently you will find 728 shacks, household there. It's not numbers, it's shacks, household that are staying there. You can imagine 74 versus 728 household. So they were told in the community hall, but they were expecting the old way of material, that we will give the material, and some of them, they used to say, we want to build it ourselves so that they can accommodate. Just leave material here, we will build it ourselves. So that was a challenge, yes. Hence I said public participation was not really properly done. Or there's a question on the supply chain of material. It's a very good question. But fortunately, that's what we're doing. We went out on a 3-year tender and serviced the material, because it became very expensive to start to want to procure when the shacks have been bent out. You have to follow all these supply chain process.
Sound is lost again. Just reporting that the sound is lost again. It seems to be at council chambers.
In fact, we wanted to use the land at large, but they said you can only, if you don't have an EIA permit, you can only use 1 hectare of that land. Otherwise, if you use more than 1 hectare of that land, your project will be compromised. It will not get approval from the relevant department because you have tampered with the environment without a permit. But you can tamper within for a 1 hectare kind of. That's what we were told because we wanted to speed up things. The zoning part of it, that land was mostly agricultural. As a condition to us that when it was donated, that about 15 hectares of it must be reserved for agricultural purpose, and the rest can accommodate housing. So there is that a plan, and it came as a condition when we were donated that land, that there should be agricultural project. Out of the 8 total hectares should be reserved for agricultural purposes. I just want to say to the national department, as council, we've seen shacks getting burned. We were so impressed with the material that is not burning for our people, and it's such a good material. We needed it. I think National gave it out of good intentions. We apply out of good intentions, but we never expected that our communities, I don't want to say they were not grateful in this case, but it's something that should have been welcomed. But I think there are costs involved that I think everybody will be concerned about. So do I. Those costs are, there was work that has been done by this company. The material has been done and all of the money has been spent. And yet, after the money has been spent, there's no houses that we can point and say, this is the person that benefited. That is the question. That is always a problem when our community enter into unrest. We lose services, we lose money, things that we've paid for. We end up losing plans that we've planned properly. And when there's a riot, I'm not sure if the cost of the riot must be costed when those people died on the bus. He said, cost everything that these riots have cost us. The cost of those riots includes this kind of cost in this project as well. But council cannot fold arms and say, National must come and assist again. Council, in this budget adjustment, we will have to provide, council, for the emergency houses at the airport to be directed to the rightful beneficiaries. So there is a money that has been put aside by council specifically for that purpose of transporting and reassembling this material to the rightful beneficiaries. But it will be always welcome if province and national can come and assist if they can give money. We wouldn't say no. But I also want to say, I so wish that the parliamentary members can go and visit the area of Kolweni now and see how many shacks has been demolished there. The housing project has started there now. I want to thank the national and provincial government there. That is going to eradicate almost half of the Kolweni shacks. We've already built a TRA, which I sometimes believe that people are confusing this emergency housing with the TRA. These houses are bigger than what is there in the TRAs. So it's something that I think maybe members can go and view that as well. Part of those riots were for the land in Ebenezer. For us to start working in that land, we started to work in that land end of last month. The EIA takes 1.5 years. If it's sped up, we've been requesting the provincial and national government to come and assist. God, we are told that our environment do anything. So just to apply, before you can even start a development, you need first to get that permission of EIA permission, which will take you 1.5 years for it to be processed. The quickest was 9 months. Now you've got this amount of money that you must spend, and EIA does not allow on the one hand. It's something that, Chairperson, I so wish that the Parliament can assist us because we are a special town. Our environment is sensitive, and we've got a huge volume of people from the Eastern Cape, and mostly unemployed. We need RDP houses. Even those RDP houses are surrounded by 8 shacks each, as we speak. In one RDP, you will see 8 shacks around. One shack gets banned, also gets affected for those people and help them. It also calls to do that. But I so wish that province and national can also assist us and inject as much funds for human settlement as possible for our area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't see any hand moving forward. Mr. Lishabani, is there anything that you want to say in conclusion about this?
Chairperson, thank you very much. Just to
Mr. Lishabani?
Chairperson, I am here. Can you hear me, Chairperson? Chairperson, I am here. I suspect that
I lost him there. Mr. Lishabani, I can see you unmute. Can you unmute? You are on mute now.
Okay, is that better, Chairperson? I can confirm, Chairperson, I have fiber to home.
Okay, we cannot hear Mr. Unmute.
Okay.
Is there the IT challenge we are facing? Sorry, Mr. Lishabani, we have another episode of the IT. We are not in the 4th industrial revolution yet. We are, I'll be quoted saying.
I suspect other members.
Okay, we are busy. The IT saying is rebooting again, and then it will catch up with you. If you can give us about how many seconds? 2 minutes. Now, that means you should be up now because
I'll be guided. Thank you, Chair.
I'm sorry. Mr. Lishabani, we can hear you now. You can go on.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just very briefly, the question, why are we anticipating that there are communities, in light of the budget reductions, are communities exposed to emergency? Chairperson, I can categorically say that that is not the intention that's not the position of the National Department. In fact, what we provinces and the metros in this case is that it is within their hands to reprioritize budgets to respond to emergency. We have this emergency grant which we make available, even though it is a finite grant, but provinces and municipalities must and should be able to reprioritize so that they can respond to emergencies. That is why, Chairperson, this committee has an opportunity to further engage with the City of Cape Town with regard to the position it adopted in this regard. Lastly, Chairperson, I think the big lessons in emergency situations now is that it is pointless to replace a banned informal settlement with the same set up after the fire or the storms. It is always better to build better after those incidences. That is why, Chairperson, we are encouraging municipalities to have in place disaster risk reduction plans, because we know where there are informal settlements, they are high risk. While you are waiting for long-term plans, let's have in place disaster risk reduction plans. For us, Chairperson, even in this case, that's a big lesson. But Chairperson, Member Van Westhuizen was asking, what would we do differently? I think the mayor has answered in that respect, Chairperson, and I'm very satisfied. Given other instances where we are responding to emergencies like this, I think the Bitou Municipality perhaps serves as one of the good practices, save for the challenges that unfolded and confronted the project. What we'll do differently, I think we'll take cue from the municipality, where you will then tie up the community consultation to be sure that the solutions that are delivered are indeed well received. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lishabani. I'm going to hand over to Mepila. Is there anything that, in conclusion, that you would want to say?
No, Chairperson, except to say that we have reprioritized Kolweni informal settlements, and it is reflected in our business plan for next year, as indicated by DDG Shabane. So it will be funded from the ISUPG grant as a priority within this municipality.
Whilst you're still on the mic, the issue of the EIA, to what an extent intergovernmental relations is it playing place that there's no such a red tape of the municipality waiting for 1.5 years before they can get there in order?
It is a document, Chairperson, that was drafted by our colleagues from Environmental Affairs, which will be sent to the National Department. What the document seeks to do, it seeks to enter into some sort of arrangement with the national counterparts on how to deal and address some of the activities and short-circuit certain processes. It also seeks to align some of the statutory processes relating to public participation so that we can reduce the timeline. So we're hoping that we will receive a favorable response from national. I have seen the draft agreement to that effect that needs to be signed off by the Western Cape region and sent to national for finalization.
Okay, thank you very much. We will have to engage to see what is in there after it's been signed off, so that also it can be shared to the members to get a grip of that. Minister, I don't know from the director, is there anything in conclusion about this part one that you'd want to say to us? Okay, going once, twice, gone. Thank you very much from my side. I think, Shimis, are we going to take a little bit of break before we start with the second part of our agenda, which it will be the alternate building. Who's going to do the presentation? It will be the municipality. Okay, Knysna Municipality will be talking to us about the manner in which alternate building measures up with the conventional building methods. And I think what will be more important is the buy-in, because we can test all the materials, but our communities, to what an extent do we have the buy-in from them? I think who's going to do the presentation? It will be Mr. Lindile Petuna, who's going to do the presentation for Knysna.
Yes, Chairperson, it will be Lindile, but I think they're joining.
You will lead it.
They're joining online. I don't think they hear.
Okay, they're joining online. Okay, I see. Over to you, Mr. Petuna.
Good morning, Chairperson. Should I do the presentation now, or are you taking a break?
No, I was just saying that be ready. We are going to take just a 5 minutes breather, and that means you will start 26 minutes past 11.
All right, we'll do, Chairperson. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, we have a breather of about 5 minutes. You can respond to your WhatsApps so that we can continue. Don't have to go out. Thank you. And Burgemeester? Can I hand over to the Knysna Municipality? I see a hand raised by Eric van Aswegen.
Chair, thank you very much. Good morning. Let me first greet my counterpart in Bitou, the Executive Mayor, Councillor Lobesi, and also greet you, the honourable members of your committee, Chair, and welcome you to our part of the world. Also greetings, Chair, to Department of Integrated Human Settlements, Department officials, and in closing, Chair, greetings to all councillors of Bitou and Knysna Municipality. Chair, Mr. Petuna is going to do the presentation on behalf of Knysna Municipality, and he will be assisted, if necessary, by the Deputy Mayor, the Executive Deputy Mayor, Councillor Aubrey Chengwa, if necessary. So, Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I hand over to Mr. Petuna. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Chairperson. Let me greet everyone.
Mr. Petuna, just a second, because I think your line is a little bit not clear. I don't know how can you go about number one. Number two, I just want to find out, do you have a presentation that you can share with us?
Yes, Chairperson, I do have a presentation, and I was just about to share it now.
Okay, you have it on your side, so you will have screen with us. And it's those 5 minutes that I meant that maybe we should have prepared that, but we can allocate another 2 minutes. I think that, okay, those who are online, but in our chambers, I think we have the copies that we can share. We are okay. So it's more of those who are online that didn't receive it. I don't think it's on files on the Teams, but you can continue. Mr. Petuna?
Yes, Chairperson, I'm trying to share the presentation. I'm not sure why it's not showing, but I'm trying to.
Okay, continue, sir.
All right, Chairperson, let me then continue with the presentation. Chairperson, the presentation that we are dealing with on our side is in relation to White Location project. And what we are dealing with, the aspect that we are dealing with there in that project is alternative building technologies which were utilized in that project. I must say that the project itself had normal conventional technologies used, as well as the introduction now of alternative building technologies that were also used. The project itself is a partnership between the provincial department as well as the municipality, and it has been funded and implemented by the Provincial Department of Human Settlements, and we have been assisting in that regard. Now, in terms of just to look at the business plan, because the project itself has been implemented over a period of 3 years. The fires were in 2017, and the project started in the 2017-18 financial year, and it finished in the 2020-21 financial year. To be specific, The beneficiaries that received their houses, the last beneficiary received a house in December of 2020. That's when the project was then, the houses were handed over. Now, the background, the project stems from the fire disasters of 2017, which affected a number of areas in Knysna. In terms of those fires, 150 informal structures were burnt down and 45 houses in White Location were then damaged. There was then an allocation by the provincial department to the value of 40.5 million, which was then subdivided into three portions for servicing of the 120 sites, which would include an access road, as well as earthworks that were required for the top structures, as well as for site and service. It also included the repair of the 45 units, and there was an amount of 9.9 million for that, as well as an amount of 5.8 million then for formalization. Now, in terms of the approved beneficiaries, 107 of the 150 households were approved as beneficiaries in terms of the HSS system. Now, the Western Cape is then operating in terms of the age policy. That was then implemented, and 57 of those beneficiaries then qualified on the basis that they were with which was allowed in terms of the age policy. Now, on the implementation of the project itself, because these were two communities, although in White Location or Vetlokasi, you had a settlement of New Rest. Now, the two settlements wanted to be accommodated where they lived. None of them wanted to be shifted to another area. It then meant that in Love Corner area, 28 top structures had to be built, and 22 site and service sites had to be made available, and apex units be constructed on that. Now, in New Rest, 29 houses were built, of which 28 of those were double stories because we are densifying, and one was then for a disabled person. Now, 44 service sites were then provided in that area. In total, then.
Mr. Putan?
Yes.
Sorry, sir. I think you got the communication for the briefing from the municipality, and it has the manner in which alternate building measures up conventional building methods. So we wanted to engage with you to hear about the alternate building, because already you have implemented that in your municipalities. And there is a list of what we wanted to hear from you. Is there the build up to tell us about that? What you are talking to us now?
Definitely, Chairperson. That is a build up to get to that.
Okay, so it's a build up to that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. You can continue.
All right. I then said that the service sites, there were 66 service sites, which were then allocated for the project, and the 38 of the 45 units were then rectified. Now, starting in Love Corner, that's where we had 22 service sites as well as 28 double-story units. The service sites were then constructed on platforms that were then created. It was necessary because of the Knysna terrain. Now, going to New Rest, that will be 28 plus one single-story unit, which was also constructed. Now, we'll show the site and service units which were provided. which then gets to the alternative building which has been used for this project. All those units that you see in different colors, blue, white, and yellow, next to the double-story unit, which was built there as part of this project, those are the units which were then constructed, which are alternative building technology units in the area. Just to the specifications in terms of that type of unit. That type of unit is an Apex unit. That is the company that is producing the material that is used for that, which is a green. In terms of how we constructed that, there's an 80 millimeter thick that you find on that, and the area of the unit is 20 square meters, where 18 square 2 square meters is for a toilet. Now the wall thickness is 50 millimeter with a polystyrene carbon on both sides. Then you've got windows of 900 by 900. Now, in terms of construction period, that unit, if you take away the earthworks that had to be done and the preparation of that land parcel and provision of services, it took a period of 5 days, wherein 2 days were for the slab. The 1 day was for the assembly of the unit. The other 2 days were used for electrification and plumbing. So within a period of 5 days, a unit would have been completed. And the cost of that unit is 55,000 rand. Now, on slide number 9, you will see the exterior of the unit. That's how it looks like on the outside. Then on the inside, you will see the interior on the inside, because that unit is not divided as it is. It's one unit. The only area that a toilet which has got a door to it, but the whole unit, the whole 18 square meter is not subdivided. Then the owner would have to subdivide that. You will see that it's got an electricity provided. So whoever the owner is would also on slide number 11, you will see all those plumbing pipes are there that you can see. So sewerage is provided for and water is provided, as well as electricity. Now, dealing with then some of the issues that has been raised. What we have seen, community has accepted this type of building technology. They still thought that temporary solution, they don't see it as a permanent solution. There is then still a new community further, and we have done that in terms of other communities within Knysna, to take them to this area so that they can see the product that is there. They seem to be accepting the product that is there, to the point where we have requested certain communities to look at this for a normal BNG house, to see whether or not they would accept it. The slope is extremely steep, because we've got such an area now where we've got more beneficiaries that we have to accommodate, but the area is steep. Now we have then designed a 50 square meter house, because in terms of what is provided for by the quantum, we have seen that if we utilize this type of building technology, we can in fact be able to build a 50 square meter house instead of a 40 square meter house. So there is a benefit then to the benefit. The issue now of conventional by the community, the fact that they've got that preference, it's something that we still need to deal with, but there is acceptance of the product that it is in fact a good product. We've seen how it has improved the quality of life of the current owners currently. In actual fact, what we've seen is that some of the owners of these units have started making them bigger, so there are extensions in terms of the units that are there. The assembly time of these units is a plus on our side because of the fact that it is produced within 5 days. It's got less complications. However, that at this point in time, what we don't have is people that have been trained to be able to assemble this type of unit within the municipality. And once we've got general acceptance, by something that needs to happen within Knysna. The fact that the cost of the unit is slightly less than conventional, then to be able to implement other measures like in size of the house itself, which is then beneficial to the beneficiary. You have to look at from a policy perspective, wherein the house is supposed to be 40 square meter, and we see that there's an opportunity to have a house with square meter, and we see that as a carrot for the community members to take up this type of unit. Now, in terms of the slopes, the fact that we spend a lot of money on earthworks because of the steep slopes reduced if this product is then used, different types of foundations that can be utilized for this product. The challenge that we have, however, is accessibility when there is a need for maintenance in terms of this product, because it's not available generally from the general suppliers that we have within the area. And I think that would have assisted, because we have so saying that they want to extend their units, but they want to access the material so that they can be able to build further. We have been assured that it's safe in terms of fire, because one of the biggest problems that we have in Knysna is fires, such as being challenged by this. That in terms of that, it is fire safe. Then in terms of job opportunities, for the first projects, there were not many job opportunities that were created because of this. We had 40 temporary that were created, and some of those included some of the contractors for plumbing, for electrification, that were then assisting in terms of this. Now, just to recap, in terms of job creation, that is something that we still need to look at, especially local job creation, because we believe that once we have got people trained on the 8 jobs within the Knysna area, the construction time at this point in time is quite faster. It then means that we are able to have more units available at a quicker turnaround time. Now, the issue of a difference between conventional and alternative building methods, that's where the communities currently are having a debate, or not a good thing. Obviously, from a municipal perspective, what we've been saying is that this is a technology that is available, and we believe that there are a lot of positives, especially with the slopes that we have. And obviously, we do have challenges in terms of that, with some accepting it and some not accepting it at this point in time. The lifespan, we've been assured that this product can stand for a longer period of time In actual fact, once built, it can be there for up to 20 years without any major problems being experienced, the product that is there. Thank you, Chairperson. I think that is my presentation.
Thank you very much. I'm going to allow also Mepila.
Thanks, Chairperson. I think Lindile has covered most of the issues. One of the challenges that we experience on these projects, as he indicated, is just acceptability by the local community. I think there's still a lot of work that still needs to go in to ensure that they buy into the process. The second challenge that we've experienced is that, notwithstanding the fact that NHBRC has got a list of the alternative building technology systems that are approved, some of the mainstream contractors struggle in terms of the implementation of those systems, because those systems are owned by and are patented by different entities. And what usually happens is that the contractors then have to go and engage and understand the system and then implement. They haven't yet quite developed to the extent where they understand or are able to implement those technologies, which results in certain instances in delays. And I think Member Moran would know this is the case in point in Transex. This is the problem that we're experiencing there, where we, as a department, we went out to tender and we specified ABT. And one of the conditions of tender was that it should be approved by NHBRC, and indeed it was. It ticked all those boxes, but the contractor that got the job that was appointed is struggling with the implementation part, which is causing significant delays on that project. So there's nothing wrong with the technology per se, but it's just that the contractors that have to work with these technologies need to ensure that they understand the systems better. And of course, some of the approved technologies on the NHBRC system, we find that they overselling themselves. So whilst a particular technology may work for single buildings, being social facilities, schools and hospitals, when you have to replicate that for a subsidized housing, then it becomes problematic. And how we found this out was during the level 4-5 hard lockdown. We experienced delayed on another site with the delivery of the housing. And when we investigated, we found that the molds actually come from China. And because there was hard lock, not be transported into the country, which means that as the industry, there still needs to be a lot of development that happens to enable the uptake of ABT there for now. But we're also seeing the value just in terms of rating. I think Lindy alluded to that fact. And it was tested actually here in Bitou, where one of the units that was petrol bombed by the community and it did not burn. So it does work, it's effective, and way that we should go. And I think Didi Jili Shabani alluded to the fact that due to the shrinking budgets, we need to really move towards this. I must also add, Chairperson, though, we find some of the ABT systems do not necessarily come cheap. Yes, whilst we're able to come within the quantum, when we go out and test the market, we find that it far exceeds the quantum, which means that the industry in itself needs to understand the limitations within which we work. Because if we're saying one of the key value-adding attributes of us introducing savings, then that needs to be demonstrated in the process. So we're finding that is one of the challenges that we're experiencing on some of the ABT systems that we have tried and piloted. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's a short, brief one for the alternate building. Members, is there any municipality or the department about their moving forward, the fourth industrial revolution as it gets into the mainstreaming about the building technologies, keeping in mind the budget cuts that I have to be innovative in thinking out of the box to say, with the minimum that we have, how are we going to spread to cover a bigger chunk of the numbers on their database? Yes, Member van der Westhuizen, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and I welcome us looking at alternate building methods, because I think in certain circumstances, we've got no choice building materials. Chair, my question is just that, quite often people are used to certain aspects or elements or characteristics of conventional building materials, such as the ability to drill a hole into a brick wall and to be able to put a plastic plug and to put up a shelf on that wall. And my question is then, just in terms of these alternate building materials, what adjustments would people have to make in terms of their mindsets when it comes to mundane things such as the ability to put up a shelf hanging from a wall? Are these alternate building methods, can you also, fix a conventional bracket, or can you also hang a portrait, or can you also, fix cupboards or something like that to these walls? That's my first question. The second one is just from the pictures that we've seen, and I think we must understand that that picture has been a bit photoshopped. The doors are wider than normal, which just shows me that, unfortunately, the dimensions are a little bit distorted on the photograph that we've seen. Is that in terms of long-term maintenance, in terms of how the building will be able to endure the normal wear and tear that goes about with just normal life. It seems to me, as if these finishes are very nice and extremely, of one color, and that the finishes are very smooth. And quite often, unfortunately, the downside of this is that should there be damage to a wall or damage to, say, for example, a door sill or a window sill, that that damage is far more noticeable than in our conventional building materials, where surfaces are not that smooth and smoothly colored as well. And then thirdly, Chair, just in terms of, for example, the windows, we have seen in some of our low-cost housing developments that the window frames and so on don't stand up well to the normal wear and tear. And then those spare parts, or to replace such a window or to repair it, is not that easy for those structures. How readily available would it be? How easily would, in such a structure where, say, for example, a hinge of a door, or to be able to get a replacement and to fix that?
Thank you very much. I recognize Member America.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my question relates to the budget of the whole project. One being, can I get a sense of what the square meterage of the units are? That's the one question. And the second one, if I look at the top structures and you work out the unit cost per top structure, it works out to over 166,000 Rand per unit. And if you look at the repair costs, just get a sense of what is sort of conceived around repair costs. And again, if you look at the unit costs with regard to repairs, it works out to almost 100,000 Rand. Now, those repairs are, is it because of the effects of the structures, the top structures, or is it being costed for? Because one is all, welcoming alternate building materials. But if this is the cost of this structure, then it is quite, and we know that the kind of houses being built for our people are not very big houses and our families are not very small families, and often we like to expand on the we have. To what extent does it lend itself to expansion at the later stage, and and the cost implication expansion, and also future repairs that is to be effected on these on these sort of structures. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Heron and Member Maran.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question about the connection between the use of ABT and non-qualifiers. If you look at the report, the alternative building to this report, I think, is indicating that that was what was provided for non-qualifiers. Solution for me, because on the one hand, they're non-qualifiers, but they did get something. On the other hand, it looks like they were restricted to ABT, an ABT solution. So is there a connection between the ABT and the non-qualifier? And how do we get around the fact that some people don't qualify, but in fact, we managed to help them qualify? So can we just, I can understand that connection. Thank you.
Member Maran.
Thanks, Chair. And I think the concerns of is more or less the with this new technology, and colleague on the other side have raised the issue of Transact. And just this morning, when we have sat around the table, Chair, myself and you have spoken about Transacts and the slow delivery of these houses, and it seems it all has to do with this new technology and building contractors that cannot keep up with the changes that comes with that. Chair, this is supposed to be, the houses that's been built by government is supposed to be a starter house, where a family that received a house at a later stage can expand it, whether he have the financial means. Stoffland in the Dorings, the houses that's built there, they put up a frame, pour in just concrete, just cement, no bricks. And the beneficiary, after a couple of years, when he wants to expand, now have to go through this concrete room. And when doing that, he basically weakens that whole particular structure, Chair, that whole structure. And it seems, Chair, that whoever comes up with this new technology, and I'm not saying making it cheaper, but easier, don't think about the long-term problems that a beneficiary who received that house will basically end up. Look, for instance, at, and it's the only houses in that particular area with a tile roofs. Tiles that are mooi, rooi tiles. But every year when winter comes, with the wind, those people cannot afford to replace those tiles. It's too expensive. Other guy would a zinc plat and replace it, but with those tiles, it's becoming more difficult for your normal person to keep up with these changes. So speaking about Knysna and Plettenberg, and with this new technology, Chair, at what cost will it come for a normal beneficiary will receive a house? He qualifies because his earnings is less than 3,500 rand. If, as the Honorable have said, you have to replace a window, and on this, will it be possible for that person? And at what cost will it comes to him? We understand we have to keep up with the new technology, but we also have to think about our people, because the conditions don't stay the same. Life might change, comes next week. The person wants maybe the lotto, 5 balls, 200, 300,000 rand, and now wants to expand. But it's not possible for him to expand because we haven't think about expenses when we put down that particular structure. and how it will affect that particular person. So this is just some of our concerns. When the wind comes and the roof blows up on those particular structure, it's already difficult for a contractor to keep up with these things. When they are blown off, a normal contractor in my area will be not exposed to those particular things. How will he replace that particular roof for that person? And whether basically he have kept up with the new technology that have come forward. This is just some of our concerns, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think maybe if we can get the answer, because Member America indicated this calculation says for this alternate building, it's about 166,000 that is being used, and the mortar and brick, I don't know now how much is it, but the last time I checked was about 162 for a, so how is this being acceptable? Because I tend to believe the alternate building has to cut cost one way or another. It cannot be, is that, or the 166 calculation, is there also inclusive of the bulk services that are implemented there for the service sites? Or how come member can unpack for us that why is it the price up to that much? That with you says you cannot wait to press the button. Please do that.
Good afternoon, Chair. Now, just speaking to the issue of the cost, if you look at the unit cost for this ABT that we used at Vetlokasi, the unit is 55,000 rands a unit. That is inclusive the toilet and the concrete slab. That works 2.7 per square meter.
Sorry, the concrete slab, you mean the foundation? The foundation?
Yes. Yeah, okay. That is inclusive of that. And that works out to 750 to be exact. You know, and I do think in terms of cost is definitely, if you look at what you get from the unit in terms of durability, in terms of how long it will last, in comparison, because now if you look at these units cost, we have to compare them with what we previously used, and we look at the cost when it comes to an 18-20 square meter TRA or temporary relocation unit. And if you compare that, you will see that this is actually, it makes sense to use these structures. They are a lot more durable. You have, you also have toilets within the structure. I think maybe it's not a right comparison, particularly with these units, if you compare it to a normal BNG house. But I do need to point out in the issue of cost. Look, as my colleague here indicated, that it does not always come. There are benefits with it, but do not always come cheap. We are definitely engaging in the industry so that they can know the limitation within the department in terms of the subsidy quantum. However, I'm not so involved in, but generally the ABT products to assemble and to build. And that's where sometimes you, from the construction point of view, that's where you might save costs in terms of the construction time. There are a lot of things to look at, not just the unit cost of the unit, but the construction cost that you save because of using the ABT methodology. If I could go to the first question, which spoke to the issue of just how easy it is to maintain these units. Look, these units are generally, most of them, if you know, you talked about the hanging, putting on cupboards, hanging stuff on the walls. These units are generally, it depends what unit you use. I think in Fisante Kral and actually in Mossel Bay, where they used what will be more of a polystyrene a block. The block strength is strong enough. It's around about 7 MPa compared to your normal brick and mortar block that would be around about 3.5 MPa, which that means you can drill, you can hang on it. That should not be a problem. But there are other structures, yes, that are a challenge, as you, Member Malan, indicated. If the structure is of the concrete structure in terms of extension. Yes, also in terms of the maintenance of the structures, I think all the structures will have similar challenges, whether is conventional or ABT. You will have wear and tears, like whether you need to pay. If I can speak specifically to this unit if you look at cases like windows and doors and how easily to remove those, quite quality products generally use on the on the conventional building methods, which is your brick and mortar, and they actually do take a long time to wear. And I know that one of the issues that came up is that in the windows frames and the handles, they quickly wear off. The specification in this is actually designed that they can last longer, particularly because that they cannot be easily removed from themselves. Yeah, I think I also think it will always, from one product to a next product, depending in the type of, because they are not used in transects, which is a granited structure, which is completely different to what is used in Fisandekal, which is completely different in Knysna. You know, what product you use, it will definitely speak to issues of maintenance and quality and the issues of extension. I think also the issue of extension, more especially if you look at these units here in Knysna, it's just the issue of space. It's just that sometimes the space itself, can one be able to extend in these units? Certainly they can. I don't know if I've covered all the questions.
Anything you want to add?
Yes, I think I'll cover the questions. I think Member America asked about the cost of the repairs, which seems to be quite high in relation to the normal BNG. The reference that was made to the 9.9 million repairs there was for the category of houses that were bent or damaged during the fires, which were your conventional to repair as part of the rebuilding process post the fires. So it does not necessarily, it's not necessarily linked to the ABT project itself. There were two categories. Those are conventional houses, subsidized houses that were damaged, and it was 44. And then there were those informal structures, which was about 150, and the ABT speaks to that component. So I just, Heron, you asked clarity around the reference to non-qualifiers there. The qualification criteria as it relates to the number of years and the age. We in the Western Cape introduced the age prioritization system, which basically says that for the amount of money that we get, we need to make sure that we prioritize the elderly as opposed to moving the youngsters. So what we found out from the 107 that were approved there, that only 57 waiting list for the prescribed amount of time, and that you fulfill all the other criteria, and the rest, whilst in terms of the code, they qualify in that they're above 18, but they were not the priority. So we said then we would then offer you a service. Initially, we said it should be a service site, but then because we knew that that would be the final product that they get, we then said, perhaps let's enhance that and then give them this unit as their final product in home. So they accepted that. We will not go back as government, assist them in the future, because that's their ultimate. So that's the reference to non-qualifiers in this context. And then Member Moran, the issue of tiled roofs, unfortunately, the communities, they demand tiled roofs. So we go to them and we explain to them that you've got other roofing system that you can use, IBR, but they demand tiled roofs because they see that as a superior product, and I think it's work in progress to try and move them away from that, because it does become a challenge when the roofs are blown away, and the contractor at times will not be able to go back because it's past the defects liability period. Sadly, it becomes a responsibility of the owner or the beneficiary to maintain that unit, and something that we also include in our housing consumer education, that after a certain period, you'd be expected to then maintain. What our housing consumer education program does not do, though, is to quantify that, for example, if you were to go and fix a roof, this is what it would cost. If you were to go and fix this, this is what it would cost. But we do indicate that after a period, they would need to be responsible for actually the maintenance of the structure itself. And in that housing consumer education, there's also a chapter on how to maintain the ABT technology. But we just need to make sure that we build on that, because I don't think it covers all the aspects as raised by members in today's meeting.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start with the welcome, Esther, and then we'll member America and member Heren and member Maran.
Thank you very much, Chef. Greetings, Mayor of Knysna. My community is quite challenging. They want the SMMEs to be involved in the construction. And our policy is talking about 30% of the total value of the project must be given to small contractors. Now, I just want to know on this technology, how do the small contractors get involved during the construction so that they can be able to grow as small businesses? For example, where we are now, they've got a 30% share in all the projects that are taking place.